think we're in good company.
It's always something.
No, it's all right. We got to get started, and it is the way that it is.
Right.
After we concluded the only vice presidential debate.
Yeah. It wasn't that bad, actually. I was surprisingly impressed.
The thing was, it was boring, which, we haven't had boring in a long time.
Is that what it
It
is?
was very boring.
Like,
It was
it
very
was a
boring, and it got to the point
regular debate.
where I didn't know if I really didn't know what was going on, because they started agreeing with each other, and then they were agreeing with each other, and then they were just agreeing with each other. And so
Yes.
it's, I don't really know. My takeaways were that JD Vance understands that if Donald Trump loses, he may die soon after, and he still wants a career in politics. He said nothing about childless cat ladies.
He did not.
I was just watching some videos of JD Vance, just of interviews that he's given over the last 4 years. And I don't know who that was. And what I do know is that was an Ivy League educated wordsmith. He said a few things that stuck out to me. I felt like when I saw him get the most excited was when he said he wanted to empower law enforcement. And this debate was over an hour and a half. It went a little longer because they started off and they started to spar, but
right.
There was a lot said. I've got a lot of notes, a lot of things that I heard, but then it was boring. And then when he said that we want to empower law enforcement, I wanted to start with a clarification of what that means in America.
Right.
Empowering law enforcement is not to get to stop petty thieves. It's not going to unlock the deodorant in your local drugstore. Empowering law enforcement is not what that means. That means stop and frisk. So if you are familiar with the laws that were put into place in New York City under disbarred and disgraced Mayor Rudy Giuliani, that's what empowering law enforcement means. It means shoot to kill. It means judge, jury, and executioner. And it means that's all going to happen if law enforcement is empowered with full immunity, which is what Donald Trump wants. That's what he's asked for. That's what is mentioned in Project 2025. So empowering law enforcement, he perked up. He got bright. His eyes were like, let's do that. And that's not something that we should, I don't know. That's, you want my main takeaway? That's what he wants to do. I think it's a very dangerous thing. I think it's incredibly dangerous.
Agree. And I'm glad that you made that clarification, because that's exactly what that means. Not some super progressive policies or anything like that. It's absolutely things like stop and frisk, things that will harm predominantly Black, brown, disenfranchised, and marginalized communities. And that's just
every time.
That's just not something that we need. So, no thank you. But I absolutely think that there were some very good questions asked. I think that the difference in tonight and the presidential debate that we watched recently was there was no fact checking. That was an agreement. That was
there was no fact checking
by the moderator.
No, that was in the rules.
In the rules, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was an agreement for the debate rules that there would be no fact checking. So at one point, Governor Walz said, "I know we agreed to no fact checking, but I'm going to fact check that." It's like,
well, and also JD Vance alleged that he was fact checked, which he was. Right. He was. He absolutely was. But he also took the liberty And I think that him taking the liberty to come and kind of like in the last debate when Donald Trump said that he knows, oh my goodness, I'm blanking out, but he said that he was going to call, and he just pulled an Arab name.
Oh, I remember the moment. I don't remember the name that he pulled
He just
out.
made it up.
He did.
And it was just like, if you say, I'm going to call China and I'm going to call Ho Chi Minh, but you just make that up out of thin air. He kind of, JD took the liberty to just start making things up right at that moment. Like the moment
Yes.
that he then accused her of fact checking, which is crazy if you also saw how he responded to the fact that he thought he was being fact checked and somebody wanted to know, like, he was going to be exposed for lying.
Yeah. I mean, but there were a couple of and I thought it was interesting too, because there were a couple of statistics that were given that I was like, these are just bold lies. At one point, he said that 90% of the gun violence or crime in America was committed with illegally obtained weapons. That's just not true. The statistics say it is potentially less than 20%. It's around 16, 17% of crime that is committed with illegally obtained weapons. The majority of crime is committed with legally obtained weapons. That includes the mass shootings that have occurred. Now, Vance did mention that there were some differences in the question was, do you know, recently parents are being held accountable for mass shootings that are occurring. Do you think that this will help curb gun control, since you tend to vote against common sense legislation and other gun measures that could curb gun control in this country? And I was not surprised, but disappointed when Senator Vance said, well, I don't know all of the details of that case. How? What do you mean? I could see how the average person may not know all of the details, but you're running for
Because
vice
he's a
president.
robot. He's a programmed robot.
I
He's
have a
not
problem with
he's
that.
not somebody that studied policy. He's not he's not someone that is an expert on the law. He's an expert obstructionist, and he is a wordsmith that can spew professional bullshit. And that is what JD Vance is. That's why he was chosen. He does not speak in word salad. He does not make up words or moments or things while he's orating. He's very comfortable in that space. He talks so much bullshit, he can talk it all day long. Now, the
Right.
difference between him and the person that he is running with is that this other person just simply makes things up and believes them as he says them. Like the things that
Yes.
come out of Donald Trump's mouth, it's just like, I'm saying it now. No one's ever heard it before. It's a fact. You're not going to find it as a fact anywhere. No one's ever said it, but I said it. It's absolute. And then he's got a cult of people that are following behind him. So I wasn't really shocked at JD's lack of, like, I don't think that he's full of information. I think that he's attained a very high he's attained very high positions because of very rich people in high places, and they
Right.
are using him to push an agenda that they don't have the look, they don't have the sound, they don't have the poise, they don't have the finesse, and they are not as conniving, trifling, arrogant, and nasty as he is, right? So they're not able to do that in the circles that they need to do it in, but they have the money to ensure that he never fails. And that's
Unacceptable.
that's
I don't have another word for it. It's just unacceptable. So we've kind of given our overall takeaways, but I want to go through some of the specific questions that were asked. The first question started with talking about, and I was kind of glad that they started with this, but they started talking about Iran. Of course, we know that Iran launched a missile attack at Israel earlier today. I was explaining to a friend of mine because they were watching, expecting, you know, big explosions as the missiles were headed towards Israel. And I said, well, no, the dome is going to capture them. It's going to counteract them before they ever hit the ground. And they looked at me and said, I'm sorry, the what? So I just want to clarify for anyone who is not aware of this, Israel has what they call the Iron Dome. So as we know, as you may not know, some of you may not have watched the news, but earlier today, there were talks about a potential attack from Iran to Israel in retaliation. They have been going back and forth in the region with different attacks in different areas between Israel, Iran. Hezbollah's leader was killed, and so with that, Iran retaliated earlier today. It was around 8:30, 8:25, 8:30 p.m. Israel time, but it was in the morning today with a missile attack. I think they fired over 80 or something like that. At any rate, none of them hit because of the Iron Dome, that counterattacks, attacks that occur like that. So they started with talking about that. And then the question was, would you support a preemptive strike? If Israel was to preemptively strike, would you support that? Walz started with the same talking points that the Harris Walz ticket has been talking about is Israel has a right to defend itself. Excuse me, we must continue to enable this right. Essentially, we must continue to allow them to have everything that they need in order to defend itself, but we want the violence in the region to essentially cease, decrease, all of that. And then he started talking about how some of Trump's former staff even has said that Trump is unfit for office and shouldn't be anywhere near it. Vance came in and did something that I thought was very interesting. He did not start by answering the question. He started by saying hello and thank you to everyone, and then introduced himself, and then went into answering the question. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that beginning point did anything for folks who were watching? Did it do anything for you? Did it kind of set the tone for what the debate was going to look like, or what
No,
the evening?
absolutely not. But I do believe that that was so there are a couple of things with what he did. Again, he is Ivy League trained. He knows how to enter a room. He knows the appropriate things to say, and because he knows how to close a deal, he doesn't have to know the information. That's how he's trained. So I grew up with people like this that can snap this on and become this person, and I know who they are. I feel like what JD Vance is. I said this, and some people were like, "Yeah, I think he is unfortunately symbolic of the egotistical assholes that a lot of us work with and for." That they are somebody that comes in and they will lie to your face, they will lie behind your back, they will lie about you, they will lie, with you standing there, and then all of a sudden, boom, promotion. So,
That actually
that's kind of
is
like if you
it.
followed his career, that's really who he is.
Yeah.
And there's one thing about um, Kellyanne Conway, who used to be the former counselor to Donald Trump. I don't know what type of official title that was, but that was her title when she was in the White House. She said that part of the reason that she felt like he was going to do well today was because Democrats have attacked him constantly since he came on the scene, and he wasn't he if you're viewing him through the lens of a childless cat lady, then he didn't, or someone that hates childless cat ladies, not him as one, even though he kind of resembles a cat if you really look closely, one
Alex,
that's aged a little bit. But
please.
I think that if you were to take his word for, if you were to take that framing and then see how he showed up today, and you're like, oh, well, he wasn't spewing off this. Of course, he was talking. He's talking when he's talking to tech bros, he's getting off. When he's talking to tech bros, he's spewing his hate. When he's talking to tech bros, he has on an imaginary KKK hat. But the KKK also worked in boardrooms. Let's be honest. The KKK paraded around in in the dark, in white sheets and white hoods and white caps and whatever else was they used for garb. But these were people that were executives at JP Morgan and Wells
That's
Fargo.
true. That's true.
So they look just like that. So yeah, that's what a white supremacist looks like. Somebody like JD Vance. That's and it doesn't white supremacy doesn't have a face, but if it did have one, Danny, here we are.
Okay.
So again, there was no shock. Um Deceit. This is I mean, people are deceived all the time because things look good.
Yeah, and I think one of the overarching themes of this evening, the last debate that we really many a lot of the coverage that we have done in this election season and in past election seasons is, and I put this on threads earlier tonight. I think that I have to almost give a little bit of credit, though I don't want to, and this is credit in a negative way. But the Republicans have done a really good job of honing in on their talking points when it comes to the economy. And to what you just said, they have done that hinged on the fact that many people don't understand or know the intricacies and the complications and the way in which our governance and infrastructure is set up in this country. And so they make their talking points that fits their audience or their target audience, or knowing that when you talk about the economy and you talk about stimulus checks and you talk about different things that the American people have benefited from, they want to tout it like it's something that the president did. Well, Trump gave y'all stimulus checks. No, Congress, a democratically led Congress, provided the stimulus checks, which Trump actually held up because he wanted to be the signature on the check. And this is why. And so they do these and they try to develop or do develop these talking points. And to a degree, it works because even I think it was O'Donnell tonight that said something about in one of her questions to Walz that over 50% of the American people think that Trump, they like the policies that the Trump administration or that the Trump campaign at this point is touting on the economy more than they do Harris Walz. Why do you think that is? And I almost wish that Walz would have just said, well, because they're lying. They're just lying.
Well, I mean, arguably, and I've also heard James Carville say this often, but I tend to agree with this. Having morals and ethics, telling the truth, all of those things are great, but they don't win all the time. And so
Right.
the focus on and me saying this, please hear me. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do any of those things or have any of those
Right.
things. I think you should be cognizant of the fact that somebody lied to you if they told you that if you do all of those things, A, that you would feel better when you lose, and B, that you would win. Because you don't. That's not how life is. You're taught that, but you can't teach children to lie, steal, and chill. I mean, and steal. But that's really what it is. So when you have people that are willing to lie about everything, and they do lie about everything, when they come to the table and it's very disingenuous, and they are very aware of their lies, to try to prove your point that you're telling the truth, it just doesn't. It doesn't. While it does, it should help the person. It does not help you win.
Right.
Like, and I think that's the calculation that they've made. There's enough people that A, believe it, B, don't tune into politics, and if you could send them another check, that's all they're going to need. So you sent me one, why would I believe that you would send me another? You sent me one, I ain't got one from anyone else, and no one else's name was on it.
Right.
So the things that you're saying, why should I believe that it really wasn't him? Because no one has ever done that before. No one's going to do it again. So that lie essentially makes sense to them, no matter what you tell them, how it works, what the process was. Like and I'm not saying it's wasted breath. It's just where I've found us. This is where we are. So we could sit there and try to pick their lies apart. The other side has never even heard the truth, so it doesn't even matter.
That's depressing, just a little bit.
Yeah, and it's but if that is the strategy, you will lose. And an Atlanta radio host comes to mind as I think of this. I remember him speaking to Stacey Abrams when she was running for governor for the first time, and she told him that her goal is not to beat Donald Trump or to beat Brian Kemp. She said that the goal was to win Georgia. And his response to her is, well, then you're going to lose. Because their objective is to beat you. Like their objective is not to tell us the truth. And that's the point I want to make. Their objective is really to win. They only want that power. Donald Trump does not want, he wants the power because he doesn't want to be prosecuted. So they were willing to put an entire city at risk, an entire race of people, an entire culture of people that is here legally. And even after told, because that fact check had to happen, because they continue to stoke this lie that these people, that these immigrants that are in Springfield, Ohio are here illegally, and they're here legally.
Right.
And he jumped onto why that program should be illegal.
Right.
They don't want to tell you the truth. Even when told and corrected that this is a legal program, now they want to tell you why it shouldn't be legal and why it should be made illegal. And he also cited a program that has expired, but did not want to get fact checked on that, which Tim Walz was readily happy to do that, because he actually has been sitting in Congress for 12 years while you got your Senate seat because it was paid for by these tech bros that you jerk off. So, I mean, it's the disingenuous. I can't speak this. I haven't been able to speak all day, so I'm not surprised. Like, I've been up for 20 hours, so I'm pretty sure that the words that weren't coming out this morning aren't coming out at this point. So disingenuous was not the word I was going for. But that will work.
Okay.
That will work. That will work.
Okay.
That type of disingenuous presentation just really bothers me.
I agree.
It is prevalent. It's prevalent in circles, and these are the circles. Now, mind you, these same circles of men that are voting for this type of disingenuous character, their wives are over it. So we're sitting in the middle of this gender gap disparity, which the gender gap is stunning.
Yes.
It's stunning. But for males that feel like the statement, like they're really giving it to literally vote to keep and uphold patriarchal and values that really do yourself a disservice, your family a disservice, women a disservice, to prove a point. Because that's a lot of this is really about ego, and that's because it's become a personality driven, culture driven election. Trump is spending his time, like, while there's been allegation after allegation of Kamala Harris not doing interviews or serious interviews, Donald Trump does not ever do anything serious. He's never serious. He's never sat down with a serious person to do an interview. And now he's sitting down with 20-year-old podcasters and incels because he wants them to feel empowered. So
I'm glad you brought up the gender gap, though, because it's women earn about 16% less than men. It's about 84 cents to every dollar that men earn. And there was a question where they were talking about, there were a couple of questions that involved women and birth giving persons, particularly when it comes to reproductive access. But when they were talking about families and they were talking about the economy and they were talking about the child care crisis, child care costs are high. When you look at how much childcare costs, it's a mortgage payment. And sometimes it's a mortgage payment for every 2 weeks. Sometimes it's an additional amount of a mortgage or a rent payment every month just for childcare. And so it is a crisis. And one of the moderators included in their question that the United States is one of the few developed countries that does not have a thorough paid family leave program, particularly for new parents. And the question was, how long should employers plan or be held responsible or held accountable for paying workers and their employees for parental leave? Waltz was talking about, he emphasized that, yes, this is a crisis. This is a problem. We need to make sure that we control the supply and demand. People need to be able to pay for what they need, but they also need to earn a living wage. So he really tied it into the economy and talked a bit about that. But he also talked about how we need to, ensure that we have a paid family leave program. He touted some of the successes that he's had as the governor of Minnesota. As you mentioned, he was in Congress for 12 years and then was elected as governor of Minnesota. And so he talks a lot about community in different answers. He talks a lot about the paid family medical leave. He talks about the different programs and things that should be offered to the families. And he talks about, he said earlier when they were talking about reproductive access, we're not pro-abortion, we're pro-women. And so he's talking about this. He's talking about the different
appreciated
programs.
that correction.
I really appreciated that correction for so many reasons in so many ways. So he's really talking about the discrepancies between, Trump wants to offer tax cuts to wealthier parents and wealthier families, and these big companies are able to offer options like paid family leave, but we don't have any federal program, we don't have any national programs, we don't have any assistance for those who are in states or areas that or don't have opportunities, the job and vocational opportunities, who provide the childcare options. Vance got up and said they essentially want to offer options to families, but not in the way that Governor Walz was talking about. Senator Vance was saying, maybe the folks in the neighborhood want to get together and everybody watch each other's kids. Or maybe, we have to give the families the choice and give them the choice of the family model that they want. Some women want to go back to work immediately. Some enjoy working 5 days a week. We shouldn't make the choice for the families. We should be able to allow the options to be open without overreach so that families can make a decision for themselves. While I agree with that to an extent, I think that not having some type of national program like many other developed countries and nations have is doing a disservice. And so when we're talking about things like Medicare, Medicaid, we're talking about things like universal health care, which is not the same thing as what we
At
have
all.
with ACA. That's not the same thing. You have states that will not fully expand Medicaid and Medicare, despite there being federal subsidies and programs that will help cover different costs and things like that for states to fully expand Medicaid. Georgia, for example, came just shy of fulfilling the requirements intentionally, might I add, that would have given our state subsidies and different federal programs and options for our healthcare.gov or our healthcare marketplace in the state. So in this state, you're either paying $400 to $500 for basic care for a single person through the healthcare marketplace, or you're going to have a job that's offering you benefits. And God, I hope that they're good benefits. And also, if you fall anywhere within that, or you are priced out, or you don't meet the requirements for the social net programs that are in the state, which it's hard to qualify for various reasons, then you're just kind of ass out when it comes to healthcare. And so I appreciated that response. And I do think it should be the family's choice, but I think that we should have options so that it can be a choice. Because right now, for many Americans, it's not even a choice. You don't
Yeah, and
have options.
I appreciate that, and that's also something that I find really frustrating. I actually was just having a conversation with someone that has a sick parent, and they live in this state, so they were really concerned about time taking the time away, and I was like, you shouldn't be concerned about that. You're covered by paid family leave. They were like, not at my bitch ass job. I'm like, yeah, you are, because it doesn't matter, and you got 9 weeks. So, and but it's a state benefit. So
Could
it's
never hear.
something, and it's a sick parent. It's a new child. It's a and there's a it, it's and I encourage all of those of you that talk shit about New York to search paid family leave and see what rights we have here.
Or
Um,
Minnesota, apparently.
or Minnesota, as he said it's a healthcare. He made it sound like it was a paradise.
He did. What did he say? I think he said
But
something like they're ranked the number one state in healthcare or something like
to
that.
that point, it's important to say over and over and over again, all states are not created equal. Like
Yes,
they're just not. So what's happening in your state may not be happening in another state.
right,
What happened to you may not have happened to you if you were elsewhere. But
right,
some of these things, when it comes to election season, we want to blame it on the president. We want to blame Joe. Well, where was Joe? Where was Joe? Joe's job is not to be in the everyday activities that are happening in your life or in your community. But there are
right,
people that are in those communities right now that you should be focused on and holding accountable. And those people right now have probably had some part on whether or not the policies that are passed by any administration ever reach your doorstep. There are people
yeah,
in your state that help to facilitate that. So if you are not aware of what the capabilities are, where you can go, how you can connect, and who you should be blaming. Well, Joe, there's still potholes. Like Joe, like please, 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 please.
that's not how any of this works at
Inflation's high,
all.
Joe. Run me another check. No, 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 no. Because that was your money anyway. Even though it
Right,
had Trump's name on it, it was your money. Like
right,
that's what happens when there's a plague. Like when people are dying left and right, your government is supposed to step in and do those things. That's what a government. There are countries that laugh at America
hmm,
because we call ourselves the best country on earth, and there are people that are walking around that don't know when they will have health care, when they will see a doctor, when they will see another dentist. And these are the norms here. Like these are things that we've come to accept. So we
yes,
talk, and then the lower you go, or what, or like depending on where you are, like it could just literally be you got so much to say about Mexico, but those people, they can go to the dentist.
and that's that on that.
And
I
I digress. Let's get back to Vice President, or future Vice President Tim Walz. Um,
potential potential future vice president.
sure,
Um, I
and the
I
minion.
I wanted to look
I
up
mean,
what their
that's just a
ranking.
very sad, sad little man. Um,
I wanted to look up their ranking. Minnesota ranks number 16 overall in healthcare
okay,
on the U.S. News
16
list.
out of
But
50
I
ain't
will
bad.
say, I'm sorry.
I said 16 out of 50 ain't bad.
It is not, but I want to dig into some of the details of their ranking and do some comparisons. So they have 6.2% of their population without health insurance. This is below the national average, which is 11.3%. Now let's compare that to, let's say, Georgia, which has 16.6% of our population without health insurance. There are other factors, but I wanted to point this out because at one point during the reproductive access conversation, during the debate tonight, I appreciated Governor Walz's response so much. Um, and not just because I am a liberal or a progressive when it comes to reproductive access for women and birth giving persons, it is something that I heavily advocate for, especially being in the South where we have some of the most restrictive uh, access rules and legislation in the country. Which thank you, Judge McBurney, who just overturned the very restrictive access heartbeat bill that we had here. Which I know that will go through the courts, but as of right now, after the reporting of two deaths of two mothers in this state, and I'm sure there are more we just don't know about yet. Judge McBurney, he's actually been on a roll this last 48 hours in particular, but he overturned the restrictive access bill here in this state. But what I appreciated about Governor Walz's response over Senator Vance's response was Governor Walz humanized this issue. He humanized it by naming mothers by name who have lost their lives, including Amber Thurman, who was a young Black mother who lost her life here in Georgia. He named another mother who almost lost her life in Texas due to different complications. She survived, but now may not be able to have any more children. So he humanized the issue in a way that this is not just a talking point. People are dying. Women are dying. Women are coming close to death. The maternal mortality rate in this country is ridiculous, particularly when you're looking at Black women and women of color in this issue. Whereas Senator Vance was going through all the talking points, as many politicians do, of, we also want to be able to support
I mean,
for families, and we want to support fertilization, and we want to support, but he was saying we want to support all of the things that are pro-life. And so he said that, and I was very mindful of his intentionality behind his words. He said that without saying we're pro-life, and then accused Democrats of being pro-abortion, which was why I was glad that Governor Walz came back and said, we're not pro-abortion, we're pro-women, which is a distinction. And then he doubled down on humanizing the issue and naming the impacts to mothers who are dying from these unnecessary restrictive abortion bans and limits to reproductive access. Particularly when he was asked why he loosened the access in Minnesota to a degree, he was like, because it should be between women and their doctors. And then he brought his faith into it for the first, and I think only time or primary time throughout the whole debate. So I really appreciated Walz's response to that over Senator Vance's.
I get that, and I think it's good that we can all find something in it that we appreciate. And I for some reason, I still feel the way I feel that that strategy is imperative for Tim Walz and Kamala Harris to really see people for who they are. The other campaign is not looking to see people, and they don't have to. The requirement is not there. The goal to dehumanize is literally something that's done, and when you other something, then people think that Christian nationalists are the best at dehumanizing and making things other. And part of the reason they can say we want our country back is because they don't believe you're supposed to be here. That's just how this all works. But one thing I found interesting, and I went to go look for the quote, I think I just stepped into something that I'm going to have to investigate tomorrow. I'm going to have you do this as well because you have your device with you. And on the hellscape of the app X, I went there because at one point it was an impeccable search engine. But if you go to your X and type in pro family, which is what was said tonight, and it was leaned into, and it caught my attention, and I have my notes, specifically the quote, because I wanted to talk about what he said. But if you search pro family on X right now, and your results are giving what mine are giving, this to me, I had no idea that pro family was also a dog whistle. I had no idea that pro family has somehow become the same as Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
I definitely did not either.
If specifically if you type pro family and click photos.
Okay. To read some of the things that you're seeing.
I'll just show you. Pro family, white pride. Pro family, white pride. Pro family, white pride.
My algorithm must be oh wait, here's one. No.
You know, and
No.
I don't want to derail that, but
Okay.
it was interesting that he said it the way that he said it. I said I want to do the investigation. That's what my algorithm is giving me right now. Very bizarre.
That is bizarre. I've never seen that or heard of that. And
To me, I've never, that's why I said it. I would have never even thought about that. But again, that's my point, because they don't have to see people. They don't have to humanize people, because when they are on the main stage, when they are talking to presumptively America, they're never really talking to you.
Right.
And it's so hard to have this conversation, because you just watched that debate. You thought that was for you, the American voter, to vote. They're still catering to their base.
And
they're not changing their rhetoric. They're like, his focus. JD was cleaner tonight.
He was.
But he stood by Donald Trump up and down. And it's not 5 years ago that he was calling the man Hitler and said that he thought his presidency was abysmal. Like, this man is on tape just saying things over and over and over and over and over again. And the first thing they want to do is say, well, Kamala Harris explained to us why you had a different stance on the border in 2019. She was running for president. Now she's been the vice president. She's seen some things. So she knows that some things that she was thinking she can't do, but she's got a blueprint. But what were you thinking when you said that man was Hitler and then you became his vice president? Like, what were you thinking? I don't care what you were saying tonight, because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything when you open your mouth. When you go and visit random donut shops, JD, it's off-putting. It doesn't matter where you go. It's off-putting. So you're not going to convince me tonight because you were on-putting and you just put on a presentation. We sit and watch. Listen, young kids are watching presentations way before we started watching them in my day. And I'm not even that old, okay? People are watching the Apple every year. Apple gives a presentation. So we know what a good pristine presentation looks like. We know what we're going to get, and we know what we're looking at when we see JD Vance. I saw something about him that I wanted to say. Then I saw Pro Family that led me down that route, but it seems that he gives a lot of people the feeling of that person at work he's that person.
All I thought
Walz called it weird.
All I thought when you just said that was the man from Sister Act 2 when he said that woman. Because you're right. And you just said something that I made me want to bring something up, but go ahead with what you were going to. You said
the general consensus that I find is that people just feel like he's that guy.
Yeah, I can agree.
And we all know that guy. You don't. We never, like, if you say to yourself, if that guy ever gets promoted, I quit.
Because I can't do it. I
like, won't. If he delivers a pizza to my house again, I'm calling, and I'm calling the police. Like, it's because it's just something that is off, right? So it's very hard because you polish yourself up and you I don't know. I don't know what we are trying to be sold. I'm glad that we won't have to endure that again, because that was it was very unbearable. But it was not like the worst thing I've ever sat through. I'm not gonna be dramatic. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever sat through. It was something that I could understand, but also like my bullshit meter these days is just off the charts because I hear lie after lie after lie after lie. But I know that we live in this day of misinformation and disinformation. And the goal is because see, the goal is not to get everybody. They're only trying to get a few. They only need a few.
I hate everything about that.
Yeah, because we all need new strategies. Like
Yeah,
what has worked does not work. What people are hearing, they're not hearing. What people are seeing, no one's seeing the same thing.
right. I will say that there were two threads that I did tonight that got I guess I would say the most engagement of some of my threads this evening. The first one was I said calling
Explain to people what Threads is.
Threads is where I went when my X algorithm turned into a neo-Nazi fun fest. It is the alternative to Twitter that Instagram fast tracked once Elon Musk bought Twitter and turned it into the hellscape that is X. So I am mostly on Threads now. I very rarely open my X app. I mean, I'm on there, but very rarely do I engage over there because I like Threads and my algorithm over there better. So I was live threading. And one of the things that I said was uh, when they were talking about Hurricane Helene, which has a death toll of over 150 people across 6 states. Entire communities are underwater, bridges have collapsed. It is estimated to or on track to be the most deadly and costly hurricane in our history. And folks in Georgia are still without power. Folks in Florida are still without power. North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama all have impacts. And so they were answering this question of about climate change because these are part of the impacts. And so excuse me, the question was, what would be the responsibilities of your administration in climate change, essentially? Vance starts with talking about both candidates agree that the death toll is horrific, it's tragic, the loss of life, the loss of infrastructure, the damage, the cost that it's going to take to rebuild some of these areas and cities and navigate recovery. Both candidates started with that in both of their responses and agreed respectfully in that regard. Vance then switches to or pivots to the talking points that sounded vaguely, not even vaguely, sounded very familiar, of calling it weird science. And so he said, let's just say for the sake of it, we're not discussing weird science. And then he proceeds to tout the Trump administration's successes, quote unquote, in climate change, and talks about we need to refocus our energy and refocus our investments into American jobs and energy jobs here. And as as Trump says, drill baby drill. And my brain I could have screamed. And I said, weird science is crazy. And so I put on threads, I said, calling climate change a hoax in 2024 has to be a joke. Because how? Not when it hailed on my deck in the middle of August in Georgia, and you are calling, and after what Helen, however you say it, has just done to the southeast region of this country, and you're calling this weird science? Are you kidding me? And I just don't understand. Now, my issue with
Why?
I don't
How can you
understand
still
why.
not understand
It's
who these
hot as
people
hell.
are? Like, what
I
is that?
know.
Like, there's the I
You can feel the heat. You can feel
these
the
people
change.
are lying. They're not serious
Ah,
people. So why react? Like these people are these people are detrimentally unserious. Okay, they are just the most
I think they're
unserious people.
detrimentally unwell.
It is pundit after pundit, candidate after candidate. They will look at you in the face and lie. They would look at you and tell you that the sky has always been dark purple, and for you to think that blue skies existed is just a lie of the radical left. And you're probably a Satanist, and you don't know your gender, and you don't know what a woman is. And then they say those things and they just keep saying them, and then they say them about you. Like the analogy I gave you the other day. Like, if I came to your house and said, Tiff, I want you to come outside. I'm like, I don't want to come outside, but I want you to come outside, because if you don't come outside, I'm going to come get people and tell them that I want you to come out, and I'm going to force you out, and you're still not going to come out. So I'm going to go and tell all of the people that I brought that you're in there eating cats and dogs. All made up, because that's what JD sat on CNN and told Dana Bash, that he made it all up.
Right.
But you know what? The people that are voting for Donald Trump, and the news content and feeds that they follow, they have not even seen JD admit the lie. So sitting here and wondering why someone would see mass devastation and call it weird science, that's called a troll.
That's called an unwell person. How do you look at? I don't want to troll for a vice president. Maybe it's just
then let that be the goal.
But here's my issue.
As far as getting frustrated about lies that will be told and stunts that will be given. If this man, if there was an award for stunts.
Oh, he's a stunt queen. Stunt queen by and large.
I don't even want to give the stunt queens that I know that type of
vitriol.
Oh my goodness. That's just so offensive to them. It just really is.
I apologize to all of
and I've known some stunt queens over the years, and I'm telling you, that one right there
is an offense. I apologize.
Well, him and that Byron Donald, that crook.
I apologize. Here's my contention with the Democrat side, though. And I know this was the first and only vice presidential debate. We don't know if there's going to be another presidential debate, but I doubt it. But here is my issue. Walz came on, and like I said, they both agree, with condolences and sending prayers and thoughts, and that everybody needs resources in the impacts in the Southeast of this horrific storm. And he kind of counters what Vance says, and says, we did this with the IRA. We did this by investing in our infrastructure, investing in energy things and programs here. We did this with different costs and creating different jobs and all of this. And then talks about how the farmers that he knows know what climate change is, knows that climate change is real, and they're dealing with the impacts of it, and that we need to reduce the impacts of climate change. Here is my contention. That sounds great. And yes, the IRA has many benefits. I was at an event recently where they walked through the benefits from community members, from rural communities to suburban communities to cities, homeowners, renters, all the way up to NGOs, nonprofits, non-governmental organizations, and businesses. And also, we cannot get to reducing the impacts of climate change, which is real and not weird science. We cannot get to that by doing things like drill, baby, drill, or continuing fracking, which has been proven to lead to climate change impacts. So I am not with either side at the moment when it comes to this topic, because neither of you and many politicians in this country are not doing the work of passing legislation, passing restrictions, passing regulations that we need to reduce our carbon footprint and to reduce the impacts of climate change. It's hot as hell outside, and I just don't know how many more times we have to say that.
I'm gonna say this because I truly mean it. And it unfortunately, there comes a time where people can become too smart. And so while I understand what you're saying, and the country of over 350 million, probably less than 1 million know what fracking means.
Okay. Heard. So let
Carbon
me
footprint as
right.
well.
You're right.
So,
You're right.
I'm being honest. I took a
No,
class. I
you're
went
right.
back to college and took a class and got obsessed with the environment. And so there's things that I still do that I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I'm one person. My carbon footprint should not be that of a 5-person family.
Right.
However, this is information that I've been working with for 15 years. So
True.
I think about it, but I say that to say it's a losing issue because we want to tell the truth and talk about it from a factual standpoint. Because if you say all you say those words, and then on the other hand you say, well, it's hot, but it's getting hotter than it used to get.
And
You've
not
now
that.
well that's what wins.
That is what wins.
So now but if you say weird science, it's easier to comprehend because you know what science means.
Yes.
So
now,
I feel like while I have my issues, I think that it's a nothing burger right now because like there's no people feel it, they don't understand it, they don't know, they know that it's hot, they know that things are getting hotter. They don't know because they've been here X amount of years on this planet, and they've been doing this, and we had plastic straws, we had all of these things. So you can't tell me that all of a sudden that's just where the people are.
yeah.
And so finding out how to talk to them right there, I don't know the answer. I don't know how.
You're right,
This
because
is
you
just
say that and people are like, is that why I have this straw that's disintegrating in my drink? That's annoying. Bring back
because
my
if
plastic.
that's what it is, then I guess I'm gonna have to burn up.
I you're right, and I get that, and I will not go into all of the details about climate change and all of that here. That's we can talk about that through episodes on my podcast, which I've done. But I'll keep doing it. But to your point,
I think your point is perfect.
it's
Just
hot as hell.
my my
It's
my
hot as
thing
hell.
is Democrats have I think they have they don't have the right solution either. But the verbiage, they definitely don't have the verbiage.
Well,
The other
Democrats never
side,
have the verbiage.
Republicans have the
Never.
verbiage. They're calling it weird science because it's hot and it's hot. And she keeps saying big words. He said bigger words. I don't know what that means. I know hot and weird. And science, okay. So
let's talk about, let me give a quick number very quick. In the United States, the average carbon footprint of a person, this is how many times we fly, how much we drive our diesel or gasoline cars or vehicles, recycling, even though when we recycle, it's a whole other conversation.
how
But
long you leave your lights on?
how long you leave your
How long?
lights
I mean,
for,
how long you run the bath water?
it
How long it takes you to
varies,
wash your dishes?
all of that, and then some of the things we do each and every day leads into our carbon footprint. Our average carbon footprint per person in the United States is 16 tons. Globally, the average is 4 tons. When you go to climate conferences and listen to the scientists, which Democrats say they're doing, the United States is by far one of the largest contributors to climate change in the world, period. You can Google it and all of that later. The point is to what you just said, and that thank you for summarizing what I was trying to say. Neither side at the moment has the plans or the right answers or the right verbiage, and they just have these little talking points. And fracking, by the way, is basically the process in which they drill into the earth, and create steam, or they create energy, or they create gasoline. That is what
But
fracking
like, you know it, you work in policy. The
I
people
do.
that work in Pennsylvania know it. The 49 other states where it doesn't happen, or Alaska, but the 49, maybe Texas, but the 49 other, okay, 47 other states where it's not happening, they're like, huh?
I think it's less
Are
than
they
that.
saying the
But yeah.
wrong word? I've been asked that so many times.
Oh, no, 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 no. It's a real word. Google it.
It's the right word.
Fracking. Fracking. And when you have questions, you can message me, you can thread me, you can DM me. Happy to answer them. If I can't answer them, my other best friend is an environmental justice eco-womanist aficionado. I know she's listening, and yes, I'm talking about her. I will tag her, and then she can answer it, because learn from the best. And so I think that's something that I want both sides to work on, and I need it to be bipartisan. I don't need to agree completely with the Democrats. I don't need to agree completely with the Republicans or the independents or anyone else. This is not a party issue. This is a human issue. It's hot as hell. And if we don't want it to
Well,
continue to get hot as
you do
hell,
have a
and
party
climate
that's being ransacked by billionaires that are trying to fund their exit and excursion to
literal
Mars.
I can't get into that. If
So
you don't want it to continue to get hot as hell, if you don't want your community, your children, your grandchildren, your
they
nieces,
built
your nephews,
compounds
your
where they
family
won't be
members,
affected.
your friends, whomever, if you don't want the people you know to continue to have chronic illnesses like asthma and respiratory issues and other chronic illnesses, if you don't want to deal with the sewage plant that's down the street in your neighborhood because they continue to build and dump toxic waste and things in Black, brown, and disenfranchised neighborhoods. If you don't want a bio lab that is in your community, Conyers, Georgia, that then has a fire, a chemical fire, and smoke fills the air, and then they're saying we don't think it's damaging to everybody, so we're just gonna remove the shelter in place. But this is the sixth or seventh time this has happened, or this isn't the first time that has happened. Those are environmental issues, and those are environmental issues, and then there are climate issues, and I just don't think either party has the response or the answer or the plans for this human issue that we all need to work together to come up with solutions for and solve.
I'm
That's
inclined to agree
my
with you.
soapbox.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I actually want to hit. I want to. I know we're running low on time, but I want to hit um healthcare. I think I just want to say this. Um, the life expectancy for Black men in the United States is at 69 years old right now. So if you're counting, I mean, for some of you, me included, I mean, I got a good 30 left on paper. I don't know why I'm laughing, because I know that it could possibly be before then. I mean, plague be damned, um, climate be damned. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise. Nevertheless, that is what the life expectancy is. Part of that is that we don't. Oh, it's like Black men go to the doctor with what health care? So the same way that I said that I had a conversation with someone about paid family leave, a benefit that is available to people that live in the state, doesn't matter if you have healthcare or not. If you're working, if you're an employee, then you can have it. But in places that people don't have benefits, they don't have, or they don't have the understanding that they need to get these things checked out. Understanding what is in what the healthcare platform of political leaders that try to lead this country is vitally important. And so you choosing not to go to the doctor is a personal choice, but don't make that choice for the people in your family. Don't make that choice for the people that you're connected to. Understand that that a pre-existing condition is no fault of that person with that ailment. So for that not to be covered, which in one time in this country, this great country, it was not.
Right. And just to add a quick note, if it's 69 for Black men, it's about 76 for Black women. I'll let y'all be the judge of why we get a few more years, but the point is, it's only a few more years. It's 80 for white women. Do with that what you will.
Wonder what that looks like. All right. Well, wow.
Some of the topics that we didn't get to cover, but you can go to Black Alerts, BLK Alerts on Threads, Twitter. You can rewatch the debate coverage. You can go check out my threads, Alex's tweets, all of those things. Some of the things we didn't cover were gun control, which we covered a little bit. They also talked about tax credits and the plans.
I was blocked out of Twitter, so there weren't many tweets.
You said you were locked out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Surprise, surprise.
Okay.
Suspicious activity from my house. Surprise, surprise. I sent it to you in Teams.
Is that what that was? Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all, we deal with all kind of shadow banning and suspicious activity and all of this on all of our accounts, our personal and our news accounts and all of that. And I've seen like Joy Ann Reid and different journalists dealing with this. Y'all are censoring the wrong people, and I'm gonna just leave that at that. Anywho, they talked a bit about medical costs, healthcare costs, the tax credits that are proposed by each, which the Wharton School predicted or estimated that the Harris-Walz plan would cost an additional $1.2 trillion to our deficit, while the what's his name, Trump and Vance ticket would add an estimated $5.8 trillion to our deficit. We really can't afford either one, but we definitely cannot afford 5.8. We talked about the shifting policies. We talked about reproductive access, which, just to note that one of the questions was about 9-month abortions that Trump keeps saying is what the
afterbirth abortions. That's his favorite thing to discuss.
Afterbirth abortions, that's not a thing, and there's no state in this country where that is legal. So there's that.
Because it's just not.
It's just not. I just want to say again that Vance said that close to 90% of the gun violence has been committed in this country with illegal guns. That is not true. It is less than 20% of criminal activity is done with illegally obtained weapons. They talked a lot about proposals for making housing affordable. We don't have time to get into that, but I just want my other thread that got a lot of attention was I said, I just want Vance and others to stop saying illegal aliens. Humans are not illegals, and to call someone who is human an illegal alien, I just think is so disrespectful.
It's an American term, unfortunately.
It's an American term, and I just want us to stop saying that. I just want us to stop saying that.
We're going to say something else. So what I hate about America, and because I have the right to, is that as soon as we stop saying something that's problematic, we create something else that's just as problematic. We create it.
Let's not do that either.
You do it because you have to do something to disparage others, because that's the blueprint.
Or not. Or we could not do that.
It's the blueprint. If you want to fast track to power in this country, disparage a group of people, specifically an ethnic minority that you think that you're above.
Yeah, no. I guess I
You'll have supporters out of the woodwork, all types of unseasoned aunties coming to your beck and call.
oh my Lord. At one point, they said something about, they did talk a bit about immigration. And at one point, Vance said something about kids being used as drug mules. And, that he said more folks would go back home if they couldn't earn more than minimum wage. And I had a couple of issues with that. Number one, what? You made that up. That's just not true. People are fleeing violent situations and circumstances in their home countries and native countries. So they're trying to come here because we are supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, and where everyone has the right to pursue justice, liberty, and happiness, and all of that propaganda that we tout out as a country. But also, are you saying that the minimum wage isn't enough to live on? Because if that's the case, then don't we have another issue? Which I think we do. But then there are laws, on the books where someone who has certain diagnoses or issues can earn cents per hour. And we don't have time to get into that conversation. But what the hell? So I just think that overall, Vance, let me say this. Overall, I thought that the debate was boring to what you said at the top of our conversation, but boring in a good way. This is what debates are supposed to look like. It is supposed to look like respectful disagreements and discourse on the policies and the issues that impact our daily lives, the ins and outs, the us paying our housing costs, us being able to put food on the table, us being able to put gas in our cars or get an electric car if we want, us all being able to have the equal access to opportunities, equal access and protections to elections, to healthcare, to food care, to all of the things that we need. And I think that both candidates did an excellent job of respecting each other. For the most part, they talked over each other, on a couple of occasions. But I think that it was a respectful debate. And I appreciate that we really got to dig into some of the policies and issues. And though there were lies and falsehoods and misinformation and things that were given, it still was done in a pretty respectful way. And where the candidates agreed, they were open and honest enough to say, I agree here. And where they disagreed, I disagree here, and here's why. So I appreciated that for the debate. This is probably the most boring debate, and I will take it, that we've had in some years, honestly. And so that was refreshing, needless to say. For me, it made our job a little bit easier. We were able to actually take notes this time and able to thread on my personal accounts and things like that. So I will say I appreciated that. I don't agree with everything that either candidate said. I, of course, agree with what one candidate who said they were pro women more said than the other who, talks about childless cat ladies. But that's just me. And I appreciated the way in which this debate was run and handled tonight. And I thought that there were some overall good questions. So that's where I'm at. Any additional thoughts?
Nope.
Well, we want to hear your thoughts. If
I don't. Well, here's the thing.
I'm in our viewers.
I don't think that this is going to move the needle. In the end, that's really what this is for. I also don't think that going back to what debates used to be is going to be beneficial for the way that we educate our public today. So I did appreciate that. I just don't know that the same way I'm starting to feel like a lot of things, well, it's supposed to be this way, seems to be subjective, and it's because things are shifting, things are actually changing. How we've always done things, and it's the battle is going to be because we want things restored, but when they're restored, they may not look the same.
I don't think they should. I don't think
I don't know that I know, and that's part of why I have some contention with it, because I don't know. And I don't know. Again, this is an experiment.
And by this, you mean the country and this government?
Well, yeah, and a government with a bunch of cultures and a superior culture and a superior culture that will no longer be the majority in
You mean a
less
culture
than
that
20
thinks
years.
it's superior?
I mean, they are superior financially. Like financially, they
Okay.
still there's a huge disparity, right? So to say that I think that they are superior to me, that wasn't my statement.
I
But
wanted to clarify that for our new
but
viewers. I wanted to clarify that. No,
you know,
I actually agree with you. I think that there are some things that, in addition to having debates like this, we have some education and some commitments and some engagement we need to do on the ground in our own communities. We need to talk more about how our government is actually structured and who's responsible for what. Because
well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just don't think that our schools are I don't think that we can rely on our school systems fully anymore. And
We
so I
can't I
think
can't get into another show, but I will say that they let their governments work for them. It's time that we make ours work for us as well.
yeah, all of us.
And don't you shouldn't feel no way. You should feel no way about saying or feeling that way about your community and whatever it looks like.
Yeah.
If the government is working next to you and it's not working for you, it has to be fixed. And
Period.
that's a non-negotiable thing. If it has to happen to be all black, fix it.
And I think that what I want us all to do is ask your questions through the debates, through the news, through all of, the barbershop talk, all of the things. Ask your questions, but don't just make assumptions based on what you heard that may be inaccurate. Ask your questions. Even if you think it's a stupid question, you think you should know, whatever. There are a plethora of things that my friends, family members, strangers, church members, all of that ask me. And they're like, I feel like I should know that. I don't care. I don't care. At this point, ask your questions, because I would rather you ask and get the correct answer or get the facts or the information, so that you can then take that correct information or the facts to the next person, and we can really begin to make this government work for us. They work for us. We elect them, and the positions we don't elect, those who are elected appoint them. So let's make this ours, because this our shit. And like that's really it. Um any final thoughts, Alex, before we close this out? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you for watching our post debate coverage. If you have questions or comments or anything like that, whatever device or app or platform you're watching this on, be it X, be it Facebook, be it YouTube, be it Noir Plus later, make sure that you leave your comments, like, subscribe, follow, all of that. We're going to continue the presidential election season coverage. And we're also going to continue our coverage after that, because that's what we do. You can find me on Threads and Instagram at Tiff Lanelle, TiffLanelle. And you can find me on TikTok at Tiffanie Lanelle, TiffAnieLanelle. Alex, how can they find you?
That was a lot.
I know, right? Go to
Good
my
luck.
website. It's all there linked.
Have a good evening or morning. Good morning.
Oh my God. Good morning. Okay. Thanks for watching. Check out anything you missed on Black Alerts and Noir Plus. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Oh,
Yep.
check your voter registration.
Today, now, straightway. Yes. Thank you. Absolutely. And if you need help on that, let me know. DM me.